Truth, episode 2. We're going to be talking quarterbacks, crushing y'all's dreams about how Washington won't make a big move. Let's hit that intro. Oh, and the intro won't play. Oh wow. All right. So, like I stated in the little cold opening there, we're going to be discussing quarterbacks that Washington can go after. This episode. Obviously, your host Oscar Montiel, and if you notice there, we have a new face to the channel, a new voice to the channel. He's a good friend of mine. Also has his own podcast, but I'll let him do his own little intro here. But please give a warm welcome to Aaron Faxton. How are you, man? Go ahead,
Never better, bud.
Introduce yourself, and then I know you have your own podcast, so I'll let you discuss it here. So you have the floor.
Okay, as long as I don't sell it to anybody. Okay. Anyways, so with my last name being Faxon, you take the O-N off the end, you put M-A-N on the end. Faxman's Musings is kind of a podcast that sort of talks about different life experiences and things, and it's a way for people to look at any situation and put a positive perspective on it.
If you need to
That's my phone. No, it's okay. It's okay. Put it on silent. It's all good.
Oh, okay.
I think it was my dentist reminding me of an appointment coming up. Anyways, it's all good. So, yeah, no, I do a life experience podcast. I do it every Sunday night. It's just a lot of fun. It's a chance for people to just come together and look at every situation that they may encounter in life and put a positive spin on it. So,
okay.
Yeah, that's
I was taking a look at your recent episodes. It's actually pretty decent stuff. I think you were talking a little bit about for those who don't know by now, even though I've been on the air for almost 2 years, where I'm a blind individual. Aaron, even though he's not totally blind, he's visually impaired. So we work, with the National Federation of the Blind, and Aaron here was had the opportunity to do what is called a Washington seminar, where blind folk come together and advocate for rights. They go to Capitol Hill. Now, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, the last 2 years, we had to do it virtually. So Aaron got the opportunity to do it virtually again this year. He was a Zoom moderator, things like that. So, go check out Faxman's
Musings.
Or Musings. I get those words confused. For some reason, I kept on saying Faxman's Mutations or something like that. No,
we've gone all genetic on us here.
But I'll put his link. Aaron, I know that you record using Anchor, but do you know by any fact if the people can look it up on other podcast platforms?
So I actually
or is it just strictly on Anchor?
It's on Odyssey, Breaker, Spotify, and I actually created a Facebook page for it. So if you want to find out more information, submit questions, topic ideas, you can find Faxman's Musings on Facebook.
Okay, if you can do me a favor, Aaron, because I do have the link to your podcast
Mm-hmm.
on Anchor. If you can send me a link to that Facebook page so that way I can put it in the description. Everything is going to be in the description, y'all. So let's go ahead and talk quarterbacks. Now, Aaron, if you must know, is a fake or is a turncoat. Why do I say he's a turncoat? Because he had the audacity to tell me I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan. So then, out of my curiosity, I'm like, is there a reason why? Because it was so rare it's very rare to find those Baltimore Ravens fans. And then he told me, well, I used to be a Washington Redskins fan, but because they changed their name, I decided to quit being a Washington fan. So
It was a multitude of things, because it was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back in a way. Because if you look at, ever since Dan Snyder took over the team, there has been a history of extremely questionable decisions that have caused the franchise to hurt on a multitude of levels. Not to mention the fact that I feel like the reason that they say the name was changed is not the real reason. I feel like that um, because of shady activities we won't go into right now that were involving Dan Snyder, the owner.
this is a controversial podcast. So if you want to be a
Uh,
controversial, go be my
um,
guest.
there was an article that I had read. Um, I think it was a Sports Center or an NFL Network article where it talked about how Dan Snyder they were looking to charge Dan Snyder with sex trafficking. And
Yeah.
Yeah, I was not okay with that. To me, when I think of the timing of the whole situation where the name is changed right after that comes into public light, to me, like, if it was, like, for those of you who don't know, supposedly the reason the name was changed was to promote racial equity. If that were really the case, two thumbs up. I'm all supportive. But when I look at it from a standpoint of the timing, to me, it says, oh, you're just trying to cover your butt like Tidy Whitey's, and now you want to change the name that way. You want to change the name that way you can kind of cover yourself and make yourself look good in the public eye. To me, that's not okay. You have to own up to your mistakes, regardless of what your platform is. Just because you're famous in some way doesn't give you the right to do whatever you want, and then do something to save face. That's my opinion of it.
I'm also trying to monitor the YouTube chat as much as I can as well.
No worries, bud.
Um, but I do want to ask you, because I ask anyone that I can, do you think in light of data, having the sex trafficking and the sex violations and all that, do you think because a report came out? I don't know if you watched the Super Bowl this
Yeah,
past
I did.
weekend, but I watched the pregame show. Now, maybe I missed something. Maybe I walked away when they were discussing it. I don't know, but because I follow other YouTubers that cover Washington, saying that Dan Snyder. Now I'll discuss a little bit of the report and then I'll get your thoughts here. And the reporter said he worked for NBC. Um, he was stating that if because they investigated the team early, I think it was like last summer or something. But he was saying that if Beth Wilkinson and this if the investigation would have turned everything over to the NFL right there on the spot, Beth Wilkinson, the person that did the investigation, would have recommended the NFL to tell Dan Snyder that you're done. You're forced to sell the team. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Do you think that in light of that, in light of that report, do you think that is there any hope that Washington will have new ownership here soon?
It's hard to say because so here's the thing. Even if you got rid of Dan Snyder, I hate using this terminology because I'm sure somewhere deep down there's got to be a good person there, but he has been like a cancer to that team. Not only do you have him, but then you have the effects that of what he's done that has trickled down into other aspects of the front office, such as commissioners, such as other coaches, other people that work behind the scenes with the players, whether it's advertising, marketing, merchandising. Dan Snyder's prints are all over the franchise, and until you can, I just don't think that a change in ownership is going to be enough. I feel like you almost have to wipe the office clean and start from scratch. You guys might not agree with that, but that's just my opinion. I feel like the start of it has to be that Dan Snyder has to be out. That is the only way, and it sticks to me because I have studied extensively the history of Washington. I mean, 5 Super Bowl appearances, 5 NFL championships. This team has had an amazing, rich, respectable history, and I look at the way things are now, and I don't think I don't think they have a claim to that anymore.
No, I mean, here's the thing. They've had, I think, if I can do my math right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 playoff appearances. This is since Dan Snyder took ownership in 1999 or 2000 or how long it's ever been. I think he's had 6 playoff appearances. Washington has had 6 playoff appearances in the 22-year span of Dan Snyder's ownership, and it was only one playoff game. And that one playoff game came in
2012.
No, they didn't win that playoff game. 2005.
Oh, okay.
2005 was the last time
playoff game.
Yeah, they won that playoff game, and that was it. Because after that, they didn't win anything. Last year or whenever, how long you would like to count the NFL calendar year, but they were close with, they went toe to toe with Tom Brady and things like that, but they've always fell short, either getting blown out, because I remember they got blown out by the Packers. They let a 14-0 lead go away against the Seahawks in that 2012 game.
Yep. And that was the year to me. That was the year to me that they had the most hope, because they had 2 really, really bright future quarterbacks. And anybody who's followed Robert Griffin III and Kirk Cousins, you know where they are now. And I have to tell you, Kirk Cousins moving to Minnesota was the best thing that ever happened to his career. And
that's debatable. Right? I think Kirk Cousins going to Minnesota was good for him, but I don't think it was good for the Minnesota Vikings.
I see. I don't see. This is the thing. They've had Delvin Cook the past few years, so Kirk Cousins has been able to stay upright a lot simply because their running game has been so good year after year. And I think RG3, for anybody who knows, he is also the backup to Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. But my point being is that there have been instances where Washington has had hope over the years, but they've made stupid decisions that have caused them to lose these opportunities. I mean, was it 2-3 years straight they put a franchise tag on Cousins?
Yeah.
And to me, I look at that, it's just a bonehead move.
Looking at it now, like they obviously mistreated RG3. Granted, RG3 was just too injury prone.
Well, he didn't protect himself. That was more his fault than Washington's. If he would have slid, and actually, because it's physics. Small guys can't take big hits from big guys.
And his pride was and his ego was huge, because like Mike Shanahan and like the coach was like, yo, you need to take care of yourself. Like, let Kirk Cousins take over. And he was like, nah, I don't want another quarterback to take my spot. Like, I'd rather get at the end of the day, Mike Shanahan, because looking back at it, Mike Shanahan had all the reasons why, to take care of him. But RG3 didn't want to. And then here we are now where RG3 is going to write a book. Kirk Cousins, like I said, is in Minnesota. Washington is in, looking for franchise guy mode again after,
they've been doing this for years. They've been
few,
doing this ever since Donovan McNabb.
basically.
And here's the thing too. I think if the offensive line would have gotten better, if they would have tried drafting an offensive line from the beginning, you could have looked at it now where Tyler Heineke is and say that he has a better offensive line to work with. Right now, so in 2012, the reason that there was so much hope for them was because they had Alfred Morris, they had Roy Halou Jr., and they even had Adrian Peterson a few years later. I mean, there have been hopes.
Yeah, Adrian Peterson came in that one year that Alex Smith got hurt.
Yeah,
I remember.
And, kudos to him for being able to sort of rehab and come back. But the point being is that if Washington could have relied more on the running game and not like you could have had designed quarterback runs, you could have had it's just about him protecting himself, and RG3 didn't do that.
Yeah.
And Kirk Cousins, when he was the starter, he was able to have the team rally around him. There was the game that they had a few years back against the Buccaneers. That is the perfect example of this. They were down by 24 points at the end of the first half, and they come back to win 31-30. And then
I remember that game.
That.
My God, I remember that game. I remember when I was watching that game. I was like, man, Washington is about to be blown out by the Buccaneers. And here's the thing. The Buccaneers, before Tom Brady, they were hot trash.
Jameis
garbage.
Winston, Jameis Winston, Josh Freeman. You had those quarterbacks. You had it was awful. Their saving grace was Doug Martin.
Basically, and I was sitting there. I'm like, are we really about to lose to the Buccaneers? Like, are we gonna literally allow the Buccaneers to destroy Washington? Like, what the heck? But no, Kirk Cousins pulled the rabbit out of his hat and said, "Here you go." Well, it's a 1 point win. It's a 1 point win, but it's a win nonetheless.
And that's the game where good decisions were made. If Washington had made good decisions with Cousins from the beginning and actually treated him the way he deserved to be treated, you could have had games like that every week. He was the comeback kid, and he did the same thing in Minnesota. Like, remember the year that they went to the they went to the divisional round against the Saints, and Stephon Diggs made that huge catch.
With
no time left on the clock.
Yeah.
That's Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins can be an amazing comeback kid.
But the thing is with Kirk Cousins is that he's horrible in primetime, though.
Oh, he
was bad.
He is.
Yeah, he was bad.
It's even worse in Monday Night Football than it is on Sunday night.
Yeah. Well, speaking of quarterbacks, we're going to be discussing some quarterbacks that Washington could trade for because they're in the market. I mean, obviously this year they learned that Taylor Heineke is not the answer. Last year they fumbled the bag with not going after, Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford just picked up a Super Bowl ring, so there you go. So we're going to be discussing about some quarterbacks. I personally, being the guy that I am and knowing how Ron Rivera, what Ron Rivera's done the last, his first 2 years doesn't give me any hope at all that this is going to come to fruition, even though he's saying, yeah, we're going to explore all options. We're going to explore all options. But it ain't happening. I'm sorry. Like, he says that to shut the fans up, to get them off his back.
They don't care about fans.
Exactly.
That's my opinion.
Exactly. So let's run down, obviously we're going to do some, fantasy booking here because, like I said, they say that they're going to do it, but, maybe they'll surprise us. But the first quarterback I wanted to discuss is Russell Wilson. Out of five, how much would you, out of 5 stars? What are your thoughts, and what should Washington consider in giving up to get Russell Wilson to DC?
Russell Wilson is
because I feel like before I sorry to interrupt, I feel like this is the only thing that could potentially happen. Obviously, I'm going to run down some of the other quarterbacks that are high up on the list, but this is the lowest best scenario and best option for Washington. best case scenario for Washington.
So I would give it a 4 for Russell Wilson, and this is mainly because you've got a quarterback that is a great mix between a runner and a pocket passer. If Washington can get not only a tough offensive line, but an athletic one and move the pocket with Russell Wilson, he could fit amazingly into their system. And not many people know this, but Russell Wilson, not only was he drafted by the NFL, but Major League Baseball also wanted to trade him because of his arm.
Yeah.
Or wanted to draft one. The MLB wanted to draft him as well. So he has an interesting throwing pattern where it looks almost like a pitched curveball when he throws.
Yeah.
So he's mobile, but he can also make good decisions if given the time to. I think you are right. I think this is the most viable option as far as Washington is concerned right now. But again, if you have Washington going back to the pistol, using Antonio Gibson in the running game, and then having Russell Wilson do play action off of that with a moving pocket, they could be deadly. You've got Terry McLaurin, wide receiver, and then that's the other thing too is I feel like they could do even more with like maybe jet sweeps, getting McLaurin the ball more often.
Speaking of jet sweeps, I don't trust Scott Turner and Ron Rivera to pull that off because they were trying to do that with Taylor Heineke and it failed. And we would basically every single time they would do that call, like the jet sweeps or whatever, it would backfire on them and it would backfire on them horribly.
Well, I think that's because Taylor Heineke, they were trying to get him to play to a certain play style and it just wasn't working. Tyler Heineke is a pocket passer. That's what he is. He is one dimensional.
Yeah.
He is almost Alex Smith-like in a way, except for without the running ability.
Yeah. Another factor we've got to bring up with Russell Wilson is that he's also married to Sierra. So I don't know if Sierra would also want to come to DC or not. Like, what do you give that chance? Would you think that if Russell Wilson were to come here, how much of a big factor would Sierra influence that decision or not?
I mean, we can't underestimate how big of a role family plays in decisions in the NFL. I mean, look at Tom Brady. He had said in an NFL Network article interview with Ian Rappaport, he said that he wanted to spend more time with his wife and son, and that was what was the chief decision. I think that in order for Russell Wilson to really make that move, I think it has to be expressed to Sierra, not only how it could be good for Russell, but it could be good for their whole family. You kind of have to appeal to her sense of family, and I think if you were able to do that, then maybe it could be justified. Russell Wilson's move to Washington.
And then also Russell, because I want to talk about this other quarterback that I'm monitoring the chat. So let me give a few shout outs to the chat and I'll address them here in a few seconds here. Shout out to Jason Alamio. He's my guy. He does on his sports channel. He has two channels, sports and politics, but I'm going to talk about more of his sports. He says, I hate fake fans. However, he did put in another chat that he's liking, he's liking your analysis. You're spewing straight facts, Aaron. So, that's a compliment right there. So thank you, Jason, for stopping by and dropping in and dropping your thoughts in the chat.
You're awesome, bro. God bless you.
Yeah. So, on his channel, he does baseball content, football content, hockey content, and, Winter Olympics. I don't know if he's going to cover the Winter Olympics, but him and I discussed it last night on his channel for a while. So, so to discuss to close from Russell Wilson, obviously we got to trade for him. So what would you give up draft capital wise and or player wise?
this is where things get interesting because Washington doesn't really have any star players where you could say, yeah, if we gave up this player, then we could really, open up some salary cap money and justify getting him. At this point, you have to appeal for draft picks because once Russell Wilson leaves Seattle, they're going to need to look for a franchise quarterback. So I think that I'd say you maybe give up a first and a third rounder, maybe.
So you
I
said
think
third rounder and first
third
and a
rounder
third
and a
round.
first rounder. Yeah.
Would it be this year's first rounder or next year's?
Well, I think it has to be this year's first rounder and maybe next year's third. I think the urgency is going to be there because when you look at the NFC West and how competitive that division is, I mean, three of the NFC West teams made the playoffs this year. It was the 49ers, the Cardinals, and the Rams, which, of course, the Rams are
Yeah.
Super Bowl champions. And if you look at how competitive that division is, you've got the 49ers not only have their quarterback for now, which is Jimmy Garoppolo, but you've also got Trey Lance, who's going to be their future, and then you've got Matthew Stafford, who's doing well with, of course, with L.A., and then you've got Kyler Murray, who's doing well up in Arizona.
Oh well, we'll talk about him here
Well, Seattle,
as well.
Seattle's going to need to find a way to. I think Seattle is going to, and Pete Carroll is going to want to be in a win now situation because they have an absolutely beast wide receiving core with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. You've got to have a quarterback that can bring out the talents of those wide receivers, and I think drafting somebody new is going to be Seattle's ploy once Russell Wilson's gone. So
Yeah.
I think it's got to be this year's first rounder and next year's third rounder.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm agreeing with you. What I'm very cautious with Russell Wilson is he washed or not? Because here's the thing with that I have with Russell Wilson, and after I spew my truth about Russell Wilson here, we're gonna move on to another quarterback. But I mean, he has really good. He flies out. He comes out the gates and he's flying. He's flying high, and people say, "Let Russ cook. Let Russ cook." But but
He's very
like
streaky, isn't he?
towards the end of the season, like after maybe the first six or seven games, he starts to simmer down, and then everyone's like, "Oh, never mind." And then of course he got hurt last year. Didn't play too well. He basically let Washington walk all over him last year as well in that Monday Night Football game. Um, so that's my only concern with Russell Wilson is he's gonna get all the hype, let Russ cook, and then when things start going sideways, people are gonna be saying, "Is Russell Wilson that good?" That's my only concern with Russell Wilson. I
Well, and
feel.
at that point, he has to sort of quiet the fans down in his head because I think that's the kind of scrutiny that all quarterbacks are held to in the NFL. I mean, look at what happened when Gardner Minshew was the starter in Jacksonville. People for the longest time were like, "Yeah, Minshew mania," and then now look at him; he's a backup in Philly. Look, I mean, it is what it comes down to. You keep a quarterback upright. You give him a good offensive line to
Hey,
work with.
hey, Aaron.
Yes,
Keep ad lib for a bit because I gotta go
that's fine.
take care of something real fast. But
I
I'll
got
be
you,
right
no
back.
problem. Gardner Minshew was doing very very well in Jacksonville. He was, but at the end of the day, he the fans hold quarterbacks under such high scrutiny that you could make a simple mistake, and you lose one game, and the fans turn on you just like that. And that's only a microcosm of what if you look at the Dallas Cowboys and look at Dak Prescott. That's the standard that he's held to. That's the standard that all quarterbacks are held to. It doesn't matter how many times you made a mistake. You could have made one simple mistake and thrown an interception, and the fans will instantly turn on you. It doesn't take that long at all. It doesn't take long at all for any franchise and its fan base to turn on a quarterback. Here's and this is the thing too. The more competitive your division is, the more pressure you're going to feel to say, look, I want to win now. There is only a few special teams that can basically put a new head on the body and keep moving. The Rams this year were a team that could do that. If you look at it from a historical standpoint, it's almost like the ancient Spaniards, where they'd take over a country, but instead of changing everything, they would just put a new leader in power and keep moving. You have the Rams, who were a team that basically they were able to plug and chug Matthew Stafford right into the quarterback position because they had Van Jefferson, because they had Akers, because they had Cooper Kupp, because they acquired Odell Beckham Jr. There was just so many good pieces. There are only such special teams that can be in a position to say, look, we need to win now. And the more competitive your division is, the more under pressure you're going to be to try to win right now. The Rams were able to do it. Washington, for years and years, has been trying to do it. It's not possible for Washington. They have to rebuild. They have to regroup. They have to go back to the drawing board, and they have to plan. The whole reason the whole reason that Washington did so good in 2012 was because they went back to the drawing board, came up with that offense, and nobody knew how to handle it. They now have to go back to the drawing board, plan, and come back. If Russell Wilson's the guy, go ahead and do that. But you need, before Washington looks at any other quarterback, they need to have a tougher and more athletic offensive line to help them out. The past few years when they've drafted, they've always gone after new offensive players. They've chewed them up and spit them out and left them out there for other teams to take after they've been proven to not be able to handle a cruddy offensive line. So like I said, Russell Wilson, if you're going to bring him in, you need to make sure the offensive line can keep him upright.
I mean, here's the thing. I feel like Washington's offensive line actually played was the strongest unit this year.
For all the sheer number of combinations they had. Absolutely.
Yeah, like they were. I feel like if Russell Wilson were to come here, the offensive line is solid. We don't have to worry about that. Maybe fix, I don't know, the center situation because our center is injury prone. Mm-hmm. Chase Roulier, he's a good center, but he's very injury prone. Brandon Sheriff, who's been playing on the franchise tag 2 years straight, he's also injury prone. I don't know if Washington's going to re-sign him or not. And obviously, we're going to be discussing guys who should stay and should go towards the end of this episode. Towards the end of this episode. So that's the way I see it. There, don't mess with anything on the offensive line. If you want to invest in a center or a right guard, you can do that in the draft.
And you need a wide receiver on the other side to balance out McLaurin as well.
Yeah.
And I will say this too. I feel like definitely right now, Washington is missing Trent Williams for sure.
Yeah, don't get me started. You know what? Let's move on to the next quarterback before you get me upset.
No, it's all good, bro. It's all good.
But I do want to address some people in the chat because wow. Shout out to all of y'all in the chat. I see RD Rev, I see SAD, I see Jason Alamio. Wow, you guys, first time ever. I'm busy in the chat. I know that I just got a message from Jason, a private text message saying, hey, you might want to monitor your chat. I know is that we're having a strong conversation that I'm not able to address them as much. And the comments are flooding in, so keep it up, y'all. Also, before we move on, make sure if you guys are new, you like Washington content, you like whatever Aaron does on his podcasts, free live or whatever ad live podcast. Make sure you sub me up. Make sure you check him out on Anchor or wherever you get your podcast. Also, make sure you check out my podcast because basically this episode will be on the podcast platforms. So, be on the lookout. I do greatly, sincerely appreciate y'all being active in the chat. But with that being said, let's address, some comments here in the chat. You know, everyone is talking about Jimmy G. Jimmy G. And there are, whispers out there from different reporters that don't like Washington, that want Washington to fail, discussing saying Jimmy G is always here, or Jimmy G is going to come here. What do you give? How do you rate that rumor? And do you think it would be a good idea? And how much would you give up for him? Because there was one reporter that said that Washington would need to give up this year's first round pick to get him, which I don't think he's valued out of a first round pick. He has not lived up to the performance. He's injury prone. Look, he comes clutch when it needs to, but he's too wishy washy. He
He's
has
a good
good
backup, not a good
performances
starter.
and he has his bad performances. And when he has his bad performances, it when it counts. He choked in the Rams in the NFC Championship game. He almost choked in the Dallas game when he overthrew Brandon Ayuk, and he choked in the Super Bowl, Super Bowl 54 when he overthrew Emmanuel Sanders. So I don't think I like him. He has a good winning percentage and a good winning record, but when it matters most, he folds.
You want to know? I feel like his good winning percentage is because the years that he's had it, he's had a good team around him. I feel like he's one of those players that, again, he's a lot like most of the veteran quarterbacks, where the only way you can plug him in effectively is if you've already got an established team around him. I feel like I'm getting some flashbacks to Matt Flynn, who was the backup quarterback to Aaron Rodgers for the longest time, in that he would come through in the clutch as long as he is a backup quarterback, not a starter. The 49ers right now have a very good opportunity where they could bring in Trey Lance and then just allow Jimmy Garoppolo to play a mentoring role for him. It's a lot like Rex Grossman was for RG3 and Kirk Cousins when they first came in. I feel like this is a lot less likely. I almost give this a 2 as opposed to a 3, because I think that Jimmy G likes the organization too much to really want to leave, and the fact that he's gotten more play time with the 49ers than I think he would get from a lot of other teams, I think says a lot. I think that if you were to do a second and a third rounder from this year, and then a third rounder from next year, you might be able to get him.
Oh, that's so much though. So I have a question then. Why would you give up a lot more for Jimmy G and less for Russell? Because I would have understood if you said I would give up a first, a second, and next year's third for Russell Wilson. But just a second, a third, and next year's third for Jimmy G. Explain that, because I don't feel like that's still too high of value.
When you get to the later rounds, um, when you get to the later rounds of the draft, you find a lot more hidden gems as far as players go, and I think the 49ers, in order to give up Jimmy G, would want to have security going forward as far as being able to put building blocks around Trey Lance. But there's still the added thing of, how do you deal with the media? How do you conduct yourself in a public setting as a starting quarterback of a franchise? And I think that that's something that Jimmy G is going to be able to teach Trey Lance, and I think that there is an underestimated value to that. And I think that's why, if Washington were to make the push for him, I think that San Francisco would ask for a lot more than we realize. Russell Wilson, um, he's got veteran presence, but he's a starter, not a backup. there's a big difference between the role that each of these players plays on the team. And I think Russell Wilson is meant to be a starter somewhere, not Jimmy G.
Yeah.
It,
I mean, like I said, what do you give if Jimmy G were to come here? Do
if
you
Jimmy
think
G
he
were,
would be able to play the full season? Do you think that okay, so say that we keep our first round pick, right? We keep our
mm-hmm.
first round pick and one of these young boys like a Kenny Pickett, what's this guy's name? Matt Corral, Willis, I can't Mac Willis or whatever his first name was. Say that Washington one of those guys. Do you think that Jimmy G will be playing the full 17 games? Hypothetical, of course. This is if
I don't think
they get
so.
Jimmy
I don't.
G and they draft a young quarterback for the future. Do you think that
I
Jimmy G were to play the full 17 game season?
No, and I think here's the other thing too. You need to have somebody who with veteran presence and somebody who's got a tougher body because I feel like the what has been the death knell for a lot of rookie quarterbacks these days has been the fact that they've been forced to play too early, whether it's injuries to the starting quarterback or backlash and pressure from the coaching staff and fan base that has caused teams to basically say we're going all in on this rookie, even though he hasn't had the time to sit and watch and learn by example. I feel like and that's the same thing. Like look at Cam Newton. Cam Newton was immediately thrust into the spotlight in Carolina when he was first drafted. And don't get me wrong, the first couple of years he was great. You had Christian McCaffrey, you had a good running game, you could do designed runs and have him and help him protect himself. But the problem was ever since the Panthers had lost that Super Bowl to the Broncos, the standard and the margin for error for Cam Newton got higher and higher and higher, and he just couldn't keep up. And that's the same thing that would happen to a lot of these newer guys unless you've got somebody who can be a temporary starter who won't be injured so easily.
Yeah.
That's why, like, if you could find players that are a lot like Ben Roethlisberger but younger, you may have a gem because a bigger bodied quarterback I almost think is necessary in this day and age to be able to handle the hits that come from these defensive linemen and these linebackers and nose tackle and Jimmy G, he's streaky and he's not going to be able to stay upright.
Yeah.
If you bring in a rookie quarterback, you have got to find a way to bring in a starter that can last as far as health and longevity, and also, in the quarterback's room, be close to each other, study film together, really bring him up, and have that quarterback be the teacher of the rookie that's coming in and that is supposed to be the future of the franchise. That's what you need.
Yeah. So, to wrap up, so you give this a small chance. I don't know. I feel like if Jimmy G were to come here, that's basically a Ron Rivera because Ron Rivera, I feel like would do something like that. I mean, he's the same. This is the same organization that brought in Ryan Fitzpatrick once upon a time, and I do want to give a shout out to the person that commented that in the chat, and I'm addressing it now. That I would not be surprised if Jimmy Garoppolo comes here. That's why I'm saying, and I think like he's gonna be around for. I think he has one more year left on the current deal, so I guess we won't be stuck with him like we did with Alex Smith. When Alex Smith came here, I think Washington got him for the 1 year, and then they extended him like 2 extra years, and we saw what mistake that was.
And
I feel like
Jimmy Garoppolo,
if we were to come here, just keep him on the 1-year deal. Keep him on the 1-year deal. See what he does after the 1-year deal, and then if you want to extend him, you can.
I think it's a good move. I think what's interesting is there not only was Cam Newton a previous quarterback that Ron Rivera worked with, but you also got to look at Andy Dalton when he was in Cincinnati, because Ron Rivera did some work with him as well, and they are good quarterbacks, but they still have a lot of holes in their game. They make careless mistakes when the heat is on. You've got to have a solid veteran quarterback that can play, but also has the veteran presence to say, all right, you're my backup. You and I are going to watch film together. We're going to study the game, and I'm going to show you what to do step by step. That way, when I'm gone and you're out there and the spotlight is now on you and this is your team, you will knock it out of the park.
Yeah. Well, we'll wait and see. It's going to be a long month because the off season doesn't officially start until I think March 14th or something like that. Even though they can, teams and players can strike deals, in the meantime, but it won't be official until the new league starts on March 14th. So we got a long way to go. But I do want to ask you about. Let's move on. Let's address this question that Jason Alamio put in the chat, or Jason put in the chat. He says that the media likes to likes to choke on or have put Dak Prescott's head on a platter when he chokes and he doesn't live up to expectations, but they give Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, guys like that, they give them a pass. What are your thoughts on the media doing that?
There's a double standard there. There is a double standard, and mind you, I don't particularly care for the Cowboys, but I'm going to give the devil his due with what, he did incredibly well with what they were working with that year, because you had a two-headed running attack with Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott, and that was keeping him upright, keeping the pressure off of him. This one kind of goes into what I do with my podcast a little bit, and it's because you could the media, I think, is there to cause trouble and put a negative spin on things, and they do that with teams that they hold at a higher standard. It's supposed to be supposedly Super Bowl or bust every year for Dallas, and it's because of how storied their franchise is. You've got teams like the Packers, or I guess Patriots and Buccaneers now, where those quarterbacks, because of what they've done with their franchises, have been able to do so well over the years that they have entered a point where they are now considered elite. And if you are considered an elite quarterback in the eyes of the media, then you can do no wrong. Dak Prescott, in the eyes of the media, is not considered an elite quarterback in the NFL, which is a shame, because I feel like he does well for the Cowboys franchise.
Yeah.
And something to mention when you were talking about college talent. Anybody who watches NFL Network, keep your eyes open for the Senior Bowl and the East-West Shrine games.
Oh, they already passed. They were I think it was like the week of the Pro Bowl, because I remember I had to, the reason why I haven't, by the way, folks, the reason why I haven't discussed any rookie QBs, I still have to do a lot of film on them, because that's something that I need to improve on in general, is that I need to watch some film watching on the quarterbacks, because obviously, I mean, last year, I was able to keep track because a lot of the players were well known, like Justin Fields, like Mac Jones. I was able to catch up fairly quickly. But the media and fans this year are saying that all these quarterbacks that are coming into this draft class are all busts. So and some of them are from small schools. So I have to do a lot of film watching and a lot of film study. So that's why I haven't done any videos as of late, just because I do need to catch up on them. So expect here soon, because I still have to watch the Senior Bowl. I did record it. So I have to watch the recording of the Senior Bowl and things like that. So
I'm sure that NFL Network does regular replays of it, so even if you don't watch it right then and there, they're going to do replays over the off season so you can see
yeah,
a bit more. Like even if you haven't recorded it, you can watch NFL Network's replays of those
yeah,
games, and
yeah,
it's important to keep those in mind, but also the scouting combines and things like that when it gets closer to draft day. Keep those things in mind because um, as much as film study is good, you have to put it in an NFL context. There's a lot of differences between the college style of football and the NFL and the professional style. So,
yeah.
anyways, yeah.
But let's talk about some more unreachable guys. And I'm just gonna keep it simple. We're gonna talk. I think like maybe two guys that are on the radar. First guy, Deshawn Watson. Do you how many stars would you give that if you were to come here? Um, would you think it would be a good idea, bad idea, and why? So I'll hear you
Okay,
out, and then I'll give you my thoughts.
so
And how much would you give up for him if
I give this a 1 star. I don't think it's possible, and I'll tell you why. I feel like his issues off the field are so much that any team that picks him up, it's going to put a target on their back. I feel like there's already so much controversy going on in Washington right now that they can't afford to give Deshaun Watson a chance. I feel like if we're going strictly off playability, I think he has the right style for Washington, and I think that he would be able to do well in the system. But I just feel like his off the field issues are too much for any team to really want to pick him. I see him leaving Houston and being out of the NFL for a couple of years and then
wow.
coming back. It's not that I want that to be the case because he's a dang good player.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you get to a point where I mean look at Adrian Peterson. He's had a lot of off the field issues and
Aaron, I'll
domestic.
keep talking.
It's okay.
And I'll be listening on my phone. So just,
No worries. I got you. So like Adrian Peterson, he's had a bunch of off the field issues and domestic violence suits and things like that. And these issues off the field, teams can't afford to take chances on players like that simply because they want to maintain an air and a sense of professionality. And you can't do that if you've got like you can't do that if you've got a team or if you've got a player on your team that has been involved in some unsavory things. It's just like in any other job. Like if you go to an office building and somehow people got wind that you, I don't know, sold drugs or something, they wouldn't want you in the office because that's not the image they want associated with their brand. Um, there are so many players that uh, there's so many players that have had off the field issues and it's killed their careers. Plexico Burris is one that comes to mind. He went to an unsavory bar a few years back and had brought a gun with him and then literally shot himself in the foot. And it came out where, oh, you're basically a celebrity in the NFL, and you need for some reason you need to go to a dive bar, a place that's not safe or not savory. I mean, why would you need to do that? It's a bad decision on your part. Getting into controversial issues here, um, the whole like kneeling down thing with Colin Kaepernick. Yes, he was standing up for social justice rights, but you can use your platform outside of the NFL to be able to push whatever issues you need, as opposed to not doing your job when you're at work. And ever since those days, teams have blacklisted him. No teams have been wanting to sign Plexico Burris, Adrian Peterson, even though he's been given multiple chances, and Colin Kaepernick. None of these players have been signed since their off the field issues came to light. I see Deshawn Watson heading in that direction. I don't like it because I feel like, and this is the thing, Deshawn Watson has 1 year left on his contract, if my memory serves me correctly. Odds are, even though he's getting paid, he's going to be sitting on the bench, and you're going to have Tyrod Taylor starting for Houston. If there was evidence, I might bump this up to a 2. If there's evidence that he has kind of cleaned up his act, maybe. If there's evidence that Deshaun Watson has cleaned up his act, maybe Washington can take a chance on him. But again, I just don't think Washington can handle any bad publicity right now. And that's why I don't see them taking a chance on Deshaun Watson.
I'm back, by the way.
It's okay.
Yeah,
as far as what I would give up for him, maybe a 5th or a 6th rounder from this year, and then maybe a sixth rounder for next year.
Oh no, I'm sorry, dude. Like, that's a pipe dream right there, and I think that the Houston Texans will probably want more. Now, SAD says that it gives if Deshaun Watson were to come here, it would be the typical Washington move to a point where, I don't know if you remember this at all. Back when Jay Gruden and what's this guy's name?
Jason Campbell?
No. Oh my God, what's this manager's name? Bruce Allen were here.
There you go.
And
okay.
And they took a chance on Reuben Foster. He's saying that would be basically the Reuben Foster move. Do you agree with that?
I think to an extent, yes, but again, see, this is the big thing with Reuben Foster. Like, there's a big difference. Like, there is a giant spotlight shined on skill positions. There is a big spotlight. With one notable exception, and that exception being Albert Haynesworth. The spotlight was on him because he was such a beast in Tennessee, and then he came to Washington and just laid a goose egg. Didn't really do much for Washington, and that's been a symptom of it. Washington is starting to get younger, but unless you're going to try to bring in a quarterback and rebuild, you're going to be stuck with an old cultured mindset, and Washington can't afford that.
Yeah. So, me personally, for Deshaun Watson, because again, the Texans are probably going to want to get value. I don't think that 5th and 6th round picks are going to do it. I think they're going to want, because Deshaun Watson's that good. Deshaun Watson is mobile. Got Houston to a playoff win. Granted, they got smacked by the Chiefs the year that the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, but to the point where they were winning 24-0, Deshaun Watson was actually doing very well for himself. So I feel like the Texans would get their value or want their value worth. So I think that Washington's probably going to have to depart with 3 first-rounders, just because Houston did so horribly with their management was just so bad that they gave up a lot of 1st and 2nd round picks. Last year, literally, their draft pick, started off by drafting a quarterback, Davis Mills, in the 3rd round. So I feel like,
well, Travis Mills has got a strong arm, like a really strong arm.
He's pretty good. But I feel like Texans are probably going to want to do this, want to get their value worth, and
See, I feel like it
Washington's
sounds
going to have to
counterintuitive to me. I feel like it seems counterintuitive to me because why would you want value out of somebody who just seems to not care about your franchise? Like, the way he's been acting in the past year, it just seems like the front office and Deshaun Watson are at odds with each other. At that point, it almost seems like they'd be just trying to get rid of him. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. But I'm with you in the same boat. I don't think Deshaun Watson's come here. Because just a lot of off the field issues, and Ron Rivera, has a tendency to stay away from from players. I mean, he didn't want Micah Parsons. He wouldn't. He didn't want Jeremiah Wusu-Koromoa because apparently he had some random sketchy past. He decided to draft a guy in Jamin Davis just because of the military background. So I feel like I'm with you in the boat. I think that it's going to be a 1 out of 5 on that. But one final quarterback I want to discuss, and like I said, this is higher up on the scale. That's why I actually wanted to address these two last. But the final quarterback is Aaron Rodgers. What would you give up for him? How many stars would you rate it? And do you think it's a good idea?
I give this one. I see. I can't do a perfect 5 out of 5 because I feel like the Packers would want so much for this that I don't know if Washington would be willing to give it up. I think that you could give it a 4 out of 5. I think you'd need at least 3 first-rounders from this year and 2 from next. I think. Oh gosh, this is the thing with veteran quarterbacks. Look at what happened when Tom Brady went to Tampa. He spent 2 years there, then he retired. Look at what happened when Peyton Manning went to Denver. He spent like 2 years there, and then he retired.
No, he was there
How
for
much
5.
more time is Washington going to have with Aaron Rodgers? This is the thing. They're going to give up so much for a quarterback they're only going to have for a cup of coffee. I look at it from this standpoint. If you can get him, great. But I only see him being there for a couple of years because in the past few years, when it comes to elite quarterbacks changing teams, it's only been a short stint before they decide to retire. Look at Brett Favre. After he left Green Bay, he was in New York for a year, then he was in Minnesota for a year. Retired. Done.
Yeah.
These elite quarterbacks, when they change teams, they're only around in their second teams, or in Brett Favre's case, their third teams, before they decide, you know what, hanging it up, done, retired. Aaron Rodgers, more than people think, is getting on the older side, and he's still playing well, which is impressive. But again, I think that Rodgers is somebody that's going to be playing for one more ring, and then he's going to call it quits.
Yeah. I honestly don't think that Aaron Rodgers is going to come here just because, and I think it's a bad idea. And here's why.
Yeah.
He's a choker he's a choker in the playoffs, bro. Like the 1 year that the Packers won their Super Bowl, look who they beat. They beat Michael Vick and the Eagles, which I think, that was actually fair competition. I'll give them that because Michael Vick was actually electrifying that year, that 1 year. Let me see. They beat the Falcons, and we know who the Falcons are. They're chokers in their own right. I mean, March 28th is a holiday because of them.
Well, and they're gonna need like what we don't realize is that Matt Ryan's also getting up in age.
He's
himself.
washed.
They're gonna need a quarterback themselves coming up in a couple of years, maybe even this year. Who knows? So that's something to keep in mind when we're talking about quarterbacks, and that is there's a lot more teams that are going to need starting quarterbacks this year.
Yeah, no, but anyways, and then the reason why they made it to the Super Bowl was because they beat a mediocre Bears team with a mediocre quarterback.
Mitchell Trubisky.
And then they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I feel like if memory serves me correctly, they almost gave up that Super Bowl because I remember they were winning like 21-3, and then the Steelers somehow were able to claw back and make it a game.
This final score was 31-25.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. So and after that, like Aaron Rodgers hasn't been relevant since. He lost. Oh my God, he lost to the Seahawks with 2 minutes to go, and they were up by like 13 or 2 touchdowns with like less than 2 minutes to go. He lost
Don't even
then.
get me started on. Don't even get me started on comebacks because the Bills and Chiefs this year was insane too.
He got smacked by Jimmy G and the 49ers the first time 3 years ago when the 49ers went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Then
they lost this year.
They lost this year to the 49ers and Jimmy G. Like, dude, this guy, he's not clutch. He's in playoff games, he's not clutch. He always folds. Like, don't say, well, he's a 4-time MVP. Okay, if we were talking about merits and accolades, you got me, but it's all about winning championships. He has not won a championship in 12 years.
Yeah,
and when he won that championship, look who he beat. Like, I guarantee you, if Tom Brady, and this was when Tom Brady was in his prime, just about. If Tom Brady was in the NFC at the time, I guarantee you Tom Brady would not allow the Packers to get to that Super Bowl. Like, I guarantee you Peyton Manning was in the NFC because Peyton Manning was still, well, he was injured that year, but say that
look at Drew Brees that year.
Drew Brees, there you go. Drew Brees, if he had weapons, he would have, beaten, Aaron. So I feel like that's the whole reason why there would be overhype. And then when he would fold in the playoffs, people were like, oh, wow, that's a bad sale. And they would turn on him here, especially Washington. Fans are turning on Washington. So there you go.
It's a double standard because the Washington versus Dallas rivalry has been so intense in history. And there's been so many championships decided based on the outcome of those rivalry games that now those two teams, like the bigger a rivalry, the more money a team makes, the more scrutiny they're going to be held under as players and as an organization. And right now you've got Aaron Rodgers doesn't know what scrutiny is until he decides to go to Washington or somewhere else. That is like a higher money making franchise.
Yeah. But I mean, that's all the quarterbacks that I can think of.
Honestly.
2 out of 5?
Yeah, I'm gonna go 2 out of 5 on that one.
No, I say 1 out of 5.
You might be right.
Yeah, I'll put it up there along with Deshawn Watson. To be honest, 1 out of 5. So to wrap up, this podcast episode, we're going to be discussing players, that should stay, should go, get extensions. I don't know how much you've kept up with Washington this year or not.
I've been watching NFL Red Zone, so I've kept up with a lot of different teams.
Okay, so the first guy, obviously, we were discussing Brandon Sheriff. Obviously, he was franchise tagged twice. Do you think that Washington should pay him because he's going to want more money than the franchise tag? Obviously, I think when he was negotiating last year, he turned down a deal. How much would you give Brandon Sheriff if he were to stay? I honestly think he's done. I don't think that Washington's going to want to re-sign him for $30 million.
See, this is the same problem that Washington had with Kirk Cousins. You franchise tag him for so many years, and you're driving up his asking price every single year to a point where you can't afford to keep him, and that's the problem. So yes, I agree with you. Brandon Sheriff, I think, is done.
Yeah.
If it gets to a point where they would have, this is why I feel like most teams should just do away with a franchise tag because. Like, either pay somebody or don't pay them. Like, pee or get off the pot, for real.
Yeah.
I feel like Brandon Sheriff is done. I feel like, but this is the thing too. You're gonna have to, in my opinion, draft a replacement for Brandon Sheriff.
Yeah.
And I think, it's the franchise tag is like death to a team, because the more and more the value of that player is brought up, the harder and harder it is for teams to keep them.
Yeah. Another guy. Here are a few other guys that I've been eyeing. Adam Humphries, DeAndre Carter, and Joey Sly. Let them go. Let them stay. Your thoughts?
Joey Sly and Humphries have got to stay. Um, I think that they play an integral role in the team. Not only are they great in multiple positions, but I think they are also good at rallying the locker room as well.
Yeah, and
And
here's the thing: Joey
it's
Slide's accurate and is an accurate kicker. Washington's, they dealt with Dustin Hopkins for like 6 years, too long. I was happy that they cut him. They foolishly bring in a dude by the name of Chris Blewett, and then
I
they bring in
I
Joey
found that so
Sly.
funny. Like it was
Yeah,
so like I was watching a broadcast for NFL Red Zone, and it was a Washington field goal, and he goes Chris blew it, and then he missed the field goal, and he goes, oh yeah, he blew it, and I was like,
yeah. So
oh, that's awful.
yeah, so they finally they finally they finally got it right with bringing in Joey Sly. Now he did miss a few games because he did get hurt in that Monday night game, but when he came, he was actually pretty accurate. So I say bring him back. Adam Humphries, he's clutch when he needs to. I mean, Washington needs another wide receiver, period, because Curtis
Hmm.
Samuel, it was too injury prone this year. So I think Washington, aside from bringing Adam Humphries, I say bring in Deandre Carter back because he was actually very clutch as well.
They need a good tight end because they haven't had really
I
a
mean,
good
they got
game.
Logan Thomas tore his ACL, so I don't know if he's going to be
Well,
back
well,
this
my
season.
point being is that when you look at what Jordan Reed brought to Washington, he was almost Kittle-esque in a way because he was great in the passing game and he was also great as a pass protector and a run blocker. Like he was a well-rounded tight end, and I
Yeah.
think Washington needs somebody like that.
I mean, they drafted a guy named John Bates who actually stepped up this year.
You
That
said
rookie from last year. He actually stepped up when he needed to because Logan Thomas went down with injury. Ricky Seals Jones went down with injury, and I feel like Ricky Seals Jones is a solid tight end number two.
he is.
So I think that Washington should bring him back because he's actually, I think he could be a decent. Not I'm gonna say not. He would be a good to solid tight end number one if Logan Thomas doesn't come back this season. If
It
Washington
might be.
goes in the free agency market, which I don't know if Washington, if there are any good tight ends in the free agency market coming up. Hence the reason why I stay tuned because I may be doing some free agency videos here soon, or maybe doing it on the as a podcast. By the way, Jason Almeida, that he liked your you're showing out, man. You're showing out for the first time to be public on YouTube and not knowing how to use StreamYard and things like that. You're actually, wow, you impressed even me.
I do what I can, brother.
Yeah. So
But it's interesting to me, Okay, so I'm hoping I'm not going too far off topic here. I actually can see a trend happening, and believe it or not, J.J. Watt is the first person that showed it to me. But when you get really good defensive linemen, I could see,
I mean, Washington
I
already
could.
got good defensive line, bro. They
No,
got
no, 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 no. I'm not talking about. Look, there's a point. I promise.
oh, okay.
I could see a trend of like Houston started this a few years back when J.J. Watt was still playing for them, and they converted him into a tight end. I could see if you've got really good defensive linemen, possibly them playing both sides of the ball and being converted to tight ends. So that's something to think about. If you've got really dynamic players, I could see that being a trend in the NFL in the future.
Yeah. Um. So I think let me see what other guys that are free. Obviously, Ricky Seals Jones. I say bring him back.
Mm-hmm.
To give that tight end room a veteran presence. Who else? I think the rest of the guys are basically no name guys, or I don't really care for them.
I think that they need somebody like. Do you think Ricky Seals Jones has the ability to do what Jordan Reed was doing for the offense?
No, I mean no, but you never know because he was always throughout his career he's always been like a number two or number three tight end option.
So
And I
you,
think that I feel like John Bates this season, this upcoming season, if Logan Thomas isn't, because Logan Thomas was performing fairly well, and he was actually doing the Jordan Reed role pretty well for a guy that transitioned into a tight end later in his career. But I
Yeah.
feel like John Bates would be that number one tight end this season. And I think that John Bates could be filling up that Jordan Reed potential. In my opinion, of course. Who
No,
knows?
I agree with you. I think that because I've seen the way that, like, if you have somebody who's well rounded like that, then it does a world for what you can do when it comes to formations and packages. And I think that if you have the ability to be able to use a well-rounded tight end, like I that's what Washington needs. That's the missing piece to their offense. Because the other thing too is if a tight end is really good, it'll open up things for their star wide receivers. A lot of times teams are able to beat Washington because they give safety help over the top when covering Terry McLaurin. And you need somebody to be able you need somebody to be able to give the safeties a challenge that way. Terry McLaurin can be open more often. If teams
Yeah.
don't know who to cover, they're going to be lethal when it comes to big play. When it comes to big plays.
Oh, here's another guy that I actually thought of. Bobby McCain. Bring him back or let him go.
Ooh. See, he's streaky a little bit. He's good sometimes, but then other times,
I saw that.
he like this is what I'm talking about. Teams know how to play him too well. If you're physical with him, he's not well. He doesn't play well if you're like, I don't think he can handle the physicality as much as we would like.
Yeah. But let me see. Are there players that are missing? I mean, Troy Apke, no. I would not bring him back. He's hot garbage.
Could you imagine Antonio Brown going to Washington? No. Or what you could do is go to instead of drafting a quarterback, you just go to the Las Vegas Raiders and say, "Hey, can we have Marcus Mariota?" No.
I mean, I would actually be okay with that, and I think he's a free agent. He's a free agent. I'd be okay with that.
I think he's a gadget quarterback. He's a Taysom Hill.
He would fit Ron Rivera's system. He's mobile. He's mobile.
If
He's
he
mobile,
was alongside
and
Russell Wilson,
his accuracy. Huh?
If he was alongside Russell Wilson, and he was running gadget plays with Mariota, like, if Las Vegas doesn't keep him, bring in Russell Wilson, bring in Marcus Mariota, and have gadget plays being done. Play it like the Saints played Taysom Hill being alongside Drew Brees, but have Marcus Mariota play alongside Russell Wilson.
Yeah, because he actually played alongside Derek Carr in certain gadget plays.
By the way,
so
how cool is it? I know this seems off topic or something, but we're talking about Mariota. So how cool is it that he was able to throw a touchdown pass to himself?
Oh no! Yeah, I remember that. I remember that's why I like him, because he's actually very creative.
Like, he just, like, the defender bats it right back down into his hands, and he just runs to the corner and hits the pylon. I'm like, dude, that's hardcore.
Yeah, so that's why I would actually bring him back. You know what, Aaron? Obviously, we'll be discussing, as soon as we end the stream, stay backstage, because I do want to talk to you for a few minutes. But, obviously, I don't know. I can't, me and others liked what you had to say today. I appreciate you stepping in.
I got you, brother. Don't even worry.
I really, who knows what the future will hold, but the door is always open if you want to come in. Like, obviously you're a fake fan, but you still have you have you know what? I'm gonna call you Aaron Fakeman.
Fakeman. I love it. I will take it with honor. I mean, at the end, and here's the thing. I was a lifelong fan before what happened, and the truth of the matter is, I almost treat Washington like it's an ex-girlfriend in a way, because I'll always be looking out. I'll always be keeping up with them. but it's hard to have the same love for him after. Like if the front office changes, maybe. But when I think of, I wish they cared for their fans more, and I think that's what really gets me.
Yeah.
But I digress. You guys love him, and I think that sometimes change is necessary, but to me, the reason for the change is what I had a problem with. And when I think of the decisions that the front office has made, has hurt a lot of good players, and I think cost them brilliant, immaculate careers. And
Yeah.
I think that's my problem.
But yeah. So we actually reached. We were trying to do it 1 hour, but I think we went. I think I told you off air that last week it was about an hour and 20 minutes. So I think we've made it to an hour and 20 minutes. Let me just make sure there isn't anything else in the chat so we can wrap this up. I do want to thank you, Aaron, for coming on one last time.
I got you, buddy.
Do you have your content planned for this week? What's coming up on your podcast this week? Do you know yet?
Not yet.
Sneak preview?
Again, I'm going to try to search the Facebook page and see. I was going to do like a Super Bowl in review. I was going to talk a bit more about the Super Bowl because I feel like I'm not going to go too much into detail, but I'll give you a sneak peek to say that if both of the franchises that were in the Super Bowl can stay consistent, I feel like there could bloom a very interesting rivalry, not just in the Super Bowl, but in the regular season too. Because for anybody who knows, you know that this new 18-week regular season is actually a permanent thing, which means that a lot of those same franchises that you would only see meet once every 3 years are going to be meeting a lot more often.
Yeah. But so look forward for him to talk Super Bowl. Like I said, I'll put everything in his his podcast link in the description. Also, I'll be discussing here Real Madrid's or European soccer here later. Again, I apologize for not uploading it earlier this morning. Just that I was setting up a new computer. I got a new computer and I was busy setting that up. And I really just want to record on my new laptop here soon. So I'm going to finish up the setup, and then should upload it here later tonight or possibly tomorrow morning to discuss it. But one more time, Aaron, thank you very much.
I got you, buddy.
All right. So make sure you guys, sub me up. If you're new, give me the thumbs up, share the video with your friends and family, comment. So let me know what your thoughts are. I do appreciate the chat. Y'all were active throughout the hour and 20 minutes that I was live, first time ever. I was very busy. I even got called out for it. Shout out to my guy, Jason Almeida, for keeping me on my toes. I tried to address it as much as I could, but, I just addressed, basically all the topics that we discussed. So, alrighty, y'all, we're out of here.